Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I can't deal with everyday life if I have to pack up and go every day.
Hey, no need for that violence!
Arrests, pepper spray, and a brawl. The removal of a tent encampment on the Downtown Eastside.
Yeah, I basically worked really hard to get into UBC, and I've continued working, and now I might not be able to go because I can't afford the cost of living.
Plus the desperate search for housing and why it's forcing university students to make tough decisions.
They represent a key part of our ecosystem.
And dozens of dead salmon in the Coquihalla River. The concern and the call for action.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with a very public shooting this afternoon in Surrey. A taxi driver has been sent to hospital after being hit by a bullet. A passenger in that cab is dead. Mira Baines is live tonight at 148th and 108th Avenue in Surrey. Mira, what's happening there now?
Well, homicide investigators are here at the shooting scene. It's at a Surrey strip mall at 108th Avenue and Oriole Road. And there are nearby businesses that are starting to shut down early. There's lots of concern here in the community. A lot of people coming by to see what happened. Now, you can see that there is a taxi with a yellow tarp covering the passenger side behind me. It was parked in front of Church's Chicken. Police say this daytime shooting happened about 2:20 p.m. Investigators say they received reports of shots fired at a taxi in a parking lot. They confirm the 30-year-old passenger has died. His body is still at the scene here. The driver with Newton Taxi was taken to hospital with serious injuries. Surrey RCMP suspect this was a targeted shooting. They continue to canvass witnesses and gather evidence. CBC News did speak to the BC Taxi Association. Moan Singh Kang with the association says they're seriously concerned about the frequency of these types of incidents, as well as this was a daytime shooting, so there's extra concerns there. And Kang says he's also concerned because taxi drivers can't refuse service. So there's another concern about this shooting, that innocent bystanders are getting caught up in these types of shootings. Anita?
No doubt a scary situation. Mira Baines live in Surrey tonight. Thank you. To Vancouver's Downtown Eastside now, where multiple people have been arrested as the city started removing tents that have propped up along Hastings. And as residents leave, advocates accuse the city of violating its own promise to help them. Let's go now to our Lindsay Duncombe, who is near Main and Hastings. Lindsay, what's the day been like?
Well, it's been tense, Anita. It has been sad. There have been flashpoints of anger. And the reality is those emotions are likely to continue for some time.
On a day of upheaval, the soundtrack comes from a heroin user who taught herself to play.
It's sad. It's horrible to see that people don't have homes.
That there's a piano here shows just how permanent this encampment has become.
It's a neighborhood, and they're trying to make the best out of what they've got. Because of our economy today and the lack of available housing.
The BC Human Rights Commissioner estimates 400 people live in tents along several blocks of Hastings Street in Vancouver's Downtown Eastside.
I don't even know where to start.
What do you need to do here?
Just pack and move, basically.
Melody Watts is putting everything she owns into bins provided by the city. Storage facilities have been arranged, but she has no idea where she will go.
Everybody's overwhelmed, I think.
The city of Vancouver says moving people will take weeks. The order to move the tents came from the fire chief. The department has responded to more than 1,000 fires since January.
Doorways are obviously completely blocked over, so if we do have a small fire in here, our crews are going to be delayed even just getting access to inside.
Advocates say simply moving people isn't a solution. They want to see more shelters and more housing.
To come down and sweep this, you're just going to move it for maybe a day and everyone will come back. So, or they'll go somewhere else. So it's not really a solution to the issue.
By late afternoon, tensions grew between residents and police. Several people were arrested.
Be like somebody took coming to your place and taking your house. People don't get it. No one cares.
Okay, Lindsay, so where is everyone going to go?
Well, that is the big question that so many people here are asking. BC Housing put out a statement today, Anita, and said that it simply does not have the spaces necessary to provide shelter for people who are being displaced as a result of this order. It is working to create spaces, including by renovating some rooming houses or SROs. But, you know, many of the people that we talk to say they're out on the streets choosing to live in tents because those SROs were too dangerous and too hot to live in.
Lindsay Duncombe on the city's Downtown Eastside tonight. Thank you. There's worry about the safety of the salmon population in Hope. Construction of the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion has started in the Coquihalla River there, but it's happening at the same time as the salmon migration. As Joel Ballard tells us, there are now calls to stop the work.
Every day, Kate Terrian takes this walk, but it's what she saw last weekend that shocked her.
I saw dozens of salmon swimming upstream.
The salmon had arrived here in the Coquihalla River earlier than normal.
I was so excited, but also very surprised.
That excitement quickly turned to concern after she discovered more than a dozen dead salmon the next day, seemingly healthy, many with bellies full of eggs. Terrian worries it's because of the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion work taking place in the river and calls it too big a coincidence to ignore.
This is a barrier, physical barrier for the salmon to pass. And you can see them struggling to do that.
Right now, there is a ton of work being done behind me. Trans Mountain is digging up the Coquihalla riverbed to install an expanded pipeline, while at the same time, they're also replacing a segment of the current pipeline. This footage also shows salmon in the work site. Terrian worries they are trapped between excavators, construction equipment, and water pumps. Now, there are calls for Fisheries and Oceans Canada to force Trans Mountain to pause its work.
So Trans Mountain does have a permit to do this trenching across the river during the quote-unquote least risk window. And what we're saying is this year, the least risk window is not its usual time.
Salmon stocks are already on the decline in BC, hitting historic lows. Takaro says the stakes are too high to risk losing any more.
They represent a key part of our ecosystem. They nourish the forests, they nourish the people.
While it's unclear what exactly caused the salmon to die, Trans Mountain says in a statement great care is taken to preserve the environmental features around the river, such as the wildlife and aquatic habitat. Terrian hopes Fisheries and Oceans Canada investigates the situation soon.
This is an important salmon habitat, right? Salmon spawning habitat. Coquihalla River supports that. And this river is a lifeline.
Joel Ballard, CBC News, Hope.
Well, September right around the corner. Students in BC say finding housing near their universities and colleges has become next to impossible. As the CBC's Zara Premji explains, lack of affordability means many are facing some very tough decisions.
I strongly thought about living in my car as an option.
Shelby Sender is supposed to move to Vancouver from Edmonton for her master's in a matter of weeks.
I've basically worked really hard to get into UBC and I've continued working, and now I might not be able to go because I can't afford the cost of living.
And it isn't an option for her to stay in Alberta. Her program is a unique one in Canada and only available at UBC. But with the cost of rentals going up at least 20% in Vancouver and Victoria, she's one of many struggling to find something affordable to live in.
I know that if I can't find a house as of September 1st, that I can sleep on some couches for a couple weeks until I find something.
Because as hard as they try, students say they are hitting dead ends.
There is no way to balance the books now. Like you can budget yourself, you can take out student loans, but right now, like if you want a roof over your head, you're already going to be looking at $200, $300, $400 above what you wanted as a budget.
The National Rental Ranking has marked Vancouver as the most expensive housing market in the country.
Education is not just tuition. 4 courses at SFU cost you nearly $4,000 as a domestic student. Put in $2,000 for rent. It's just impossible. And so, yeah, you are accessing community support such as food banks.
Advocates are calling on all levels of government to step in immediately.
the institutions have a shared responsibility, and so do our different forms of government. So remembering that we should create these communities of care and limit the barriers that we have.
The Ministry of Housing tells CBC it is working with community partners to improve housing supply. But if they don't soon,
I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't find housing. I've literally thought about being homeless.
a very real consideration for many students who are deciding between attending school or having a roof over their heads while they do so. Zara Premji, CBC News, North Vancouver.
The BC Wildfire Service says 10 new fires have flared up in the last 2 days. There are currently 55 active fires in the province. Officials say 11 of the blazes are out of control, 14 are being held, and another 14 are listed as under control. Most of the fires are in the Kamloops and Southeast Fire Centre areas. The service says yesterday's planned ignitions in the Karamias area successfully controlled the scale of that fire's perimeter. And with that, let's bring in meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. And Joe, probably some good news, hearing some rain could be coming tonight.
You're right, Anita. In fact, high clouds have been sneaking in across Vancouver for the better part of the day, and we are seeing a few bits and spots out there already tonight. Not a lot of rain in the forecast, but we'll take anything after what has been another hot and dry stretch. Let me show you the latest on the satellite and radar, and you can see this low pressure system moving in from the south, pressing that cloud cover through much of the southern half of the province. Even a few showers showing up on the radar out towards Abbotsford and Chilliwack. The main event, though, moving through Oregon right now, and you can see some lightning strikes. That's what we're worried about in the southern interior. And if you follow that trajectory, we might see them die down through the overnight, team back up again tomorrow afternoon. That is smack dab right in the middle of some of our current wildfires of note and some of our highest wildfire danger rating. So concern for those lightning strikes, and we just don't know if we're going to get enough rain to counteract that. Here in Metro Vancouver, again, it's not a ton of rain, but just pausing you tomorrow morning, look for those showers, and boy, that'll feel good, nice and early. Anita, I'll try and break down exactly what this rain will translate to for the interior, but expect a showery day for most of southern BC tomorrow. Not a huge temperature drop, though, and that's the other part of the story I want to break down too. More hot weather ahead, Anita.
Okay, we will wait to talk to you later in the show. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Disturbing details emerging tonight after a fatal police chase in Abbotsford. 2 people in an alleged stolen vehicle were killed after that police chase Sunday afternoon. But RCMP now say 2 bodies discovered inside a burned-out stolen vehicle outside of Summerland on Saturday morning are also connected to the Abbotsford incident. Police aren't releasing any more details about what connects the 2 incidents at this time. The RCMP is working to identify the victims. And Coquitlam RCMP are releasing surveillance images of 2 suspects who are believed to have helped an accused murderer escape from jail last month. 35-year-old Robbie Al-Khalil escaped from North Fraser Pretrial Center in Port Coquitlam on July 21st. He's charged with murder for gang-related killings in 2012. He was last seen in a black jumpsuit and high-visibility vest. The first suspect is said to be a white man wearing a white hard hat, face mask, black shirt with a high-visibility vest, black pants, black gloves, and black boots. Suspect 2 is also said to be white in a black ball cap, black shirt, black pants, black boots, black gloves, a face mask, and glasses. Police say the suspects used a white Ford Econoline van to help Al-Khalil get away and have now figured out the route it took from the jail to where it was abandoned. They're also working with border agents and police forces here and around the world to try to find Al-Khalil and his alleged accomplices. Anyone who recognized the suspects or has seen them or Robbie is asked to call police. Well, Mounties in Burnaby say a driver who allegedly injured 2 officers in a hit and run 3 years ago has now been charged. In March of 2019, 2 members of the Lower Mainland Police Dog Service were hit by a driver in a Toyota Camry on North Fraser Way. The car had been reported stolen and was found close to the crash scene. Today, the force announced 32-year-old Jason Karabakaran was charged in May with criminal negligence causing harm, failing to stop after a crash causing bodily harm, and public mischief. Well, more turbulence in the tech industry with Vancouver-based Hootsuite laying off 30% of its workforce. The tech giant is the latest company to announce global layoffs amidst a surge of cutbacks in the tech sector. Vancouver-based software company Unbounce laid off 20% of its staff earlier this week. Earlier this summer, Wealthsimple laid off 13% of its staff, followed by Shopify laying off 10% a few weeks later. Now, to get an idea of where this is all headed, we're joined live right now by tech writer William Johnson. William, thanks for being with us today. I want to start by getting your reaction to today's move by Hootsuite and what this means for Vancouver's economy.
Well, thanks for having me on. Obviously, when a company lays off 30% of its employees, it's significant. As you mentioned, though, it wasn't the first company to make these types of changes. Unbounce last week, article recently. And we need to make sure viewers know that these layoffs are not restricted to Vancouver. They're not restricted to Canada. These layoffs are affecting the global tech sector as the global economic environment changes.
Well, can you talk a little bit more about that? What is changing about the global economic environment to cause all these layoffs?
Absolutely. And to sort of understand what's happening now, you have to understand what was happening over the past 2 years. As people and businesses shifted to work online, to do their health online, to buy, to do social activities, many of these technology or tech-enabled businesses saw their sales grow. They hired new employees. They raised a lot of capital. And, on the heels of this digitization, a lot of companies, again, raised significant venture capital funds. So in Canada alone, companies raised $14.2 billion. It's an all-time record. And so the interesting thing is that these companies that had wins in their sales are now facing increasing headwinds. So what that means is there are two major factors they're grappling with now. The first big one is slow growth. An impending recession, higher interest rates. What companies mapped out for this year and maybe next year is maybe not the reality that they're seeing now. The other thing they're facing is increasing pressure from an investment market that is perhaps a bit more risk averse right now, as well as investors that have already invested in their businesses are putting pressure on them to cut spending. They want to make sure that their investments are here 18 months from now and 24 months from now. As a result, we're seeing restructuring, we're seeing layoffs, we're seeing companies and CEOs looking to shore up the financial health of their businesses.
So in keeping with that, it must be pretty unnerving for employees who are working for these companies who haven't been laid off. What do you suggest they should be thinking of? Should they be looking at other options?
Well, to be honest, I don't think I'm the best person to provide any career advice for people working at these jobs. I would say, though, that anyone who has technical skills or anyone who's working in technology, your long-term prospects for employment are extremely positive. The tech sector has always had a shortage of talent. And again, these companies that have made layoffs, they're still hiring, they're still growing, right? There are still a shortage of jobs out there. I think anyone with a technical degree or anyone who's working within a tech companies, there are millions or thousands of small and medium-sized businesses across the province. They're still hiring. They're still hungry for that tech talent.
William Johnson, writer and general manager of Vancouver Tech Journal. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
After the break, a rise in sexual exploitation of kids online, why it's happening, and what families can do about it. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. There's a push to better prepare new nurses psychologically as they enter hospitals during a crisis. It's being done by a research team at the University of Windsor. And as Jacob Barker tells us, the idea for the new course came after research showing many nurses are leaving the profession because of working conditions.
The pandemic has taken a big toll on nurses.
A lot of them had left their units, had left their hospitals, were leaving the profession. In some cases, there was no plan.
Menard and her team interviewed nurses throughout the pandemic, hearing issues from disrespect in the workplace to heavy workload. Her team aims to fix this.
So it seems like there's something potentially that's missing between the formal education, the nursing programs that they complete, and the realities of the jobs in which they find themselves.
Using tools common in nursing education, but giving them a twist.
Simulations are something that's been done in nursing education for a long time, but it might be things like, managing a postpartum hemorrhage or running a good code, an effective code. And our simulations are going to be more like, how do you recognize when your colleague is burned out? How do you manage working with a patient's family when they're denying that their family member has COVID?
The program comes as healthcare workers are sounding the alarm over staffing shortages in the province. The Ontario Nurses Association says 25 hospitals scaled back over the weekend.
We're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this.
Confronted with that, Premier Ford acknowledged the province needs as many nurses as it can get.
The reasons that senior nurses and mid-career nurses left are different from the reasons that early career nurses leave. So I think to effectively address the staff shortages across the province, it's going to take a holistic intervention. It's going to take all kinds of different approaches at different levels for different groups.
The president of the Ontario Nurses Association says she likes the idea of the program.
Better always eyes wide open than closed going into something. It may scare people to the point that they might want to change their field even before they started.
A worry that isn't shared by Menard.
I think by the time students are in their fourth year, they're already fairly committed to the job. And I think whether or not we tell them or whether or not they find out firsthand, it might be less of a shock if we prepare them for it.
The 10-week program is still in development and is set to begin next spring. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Welcome back. The guilty verdict of Dutchman Aidan Coban for the sexual extortion of Coquitlam teen Amanda Todd is a welcome one by child protection advocates, but they say they still have plenty of work ahead. New data from Stats Canada shows a stark increase in cybercrimes during the COVID-19 pandemic, and advocates say minors are especially vulnerable. They're raising the alarm on a sextortion boom. Police reported extortion cases increased by 300% in the last decade, but increased especially during the pandemic. From 2020 to 2021, non-consensual distribution of intimate images have gone up by 194 cases, which is a 9% increase, 52% higher than the previous 5-year average. Possession of child pornography also went up by 21%. And for more on how to protect youth from online dangers, we're joined now by Noni Klassen from the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. The centre has worked directly with Amanda Todd's family leading up to this recent verdict. Noni, this new data is disturbing. Why is the increase happening, and what are the factors making kids especially vulnerable to cybercrimes?
Well, yeah, it is really concerning, the spike that we're seeing in numbers happening around kids being targeted. And it's something we've seen coincide with the pandemic. But over the past 6 months, we've actually seen 150% increase in cases being reported into us. So it is something that we really need to be paying attention to, and there's an urgent need for response.
The Centre for Child Protection has also released some data on how boys are extorted online compared to girls. What are the differences there?
So for boys, what we're often seeing is that they are being extorted and threatened that if they don't pay money, that images of them will be released to their contact list. And in fact, they will ruin their lives is what the threat is. And then they are terrorized from there and pressured to be sending money. For girls, often what we see happening is that the threat is for more imagery, more sexual content on demand, or a threat that content will be shared of them and destroy their lives, essentially.
And we saw that with the Amanda Todd case. Now, the Aidan Coban verdict comes more than a decade after Todd took her own life. What makes these sextortion cases so hard to investigate?
Well, it's really difficult. And, it is so frustrating that, for Amanda Todd, really, she really put us on notice for what was coming. because something we're seeing happening to kids. She really provided a lens into exactly what's going on, and we are seeing that the ways in which kids are being targeted, the level of aggression has really increased to a level that we haven't seen before. And part of that is because of the ability for these individuals to remain anonymous and hide behind the technology that they're using. It really calls for regulation of the internet, we have to be pushing governments and industry to start regulating these environments where kids are, since they're absolutely unsafe, and kids are encountering these individuals who are targeting them for harm.
Well, and beyond the regulation and the industry and the governments and what they need to do, how do we address this going forward as parents?
I think as parents, I think we should be shocked by this. It is really alarming. And I think what it tells us is we have to go beyond sort of the oversimplified safety education material for children. A lot of the kids know these messages, and what they're saying is that, again, they're afraid to come forward to their parents because they've been told not to do it. And I think it's important to understand the sophistication and the ways in which these individuals are coercing children and gaining their compliance and getting them to acquiesce is really understandable why kids are getting in over their head really quickly. It's not their fault. So it's important for parents to let kids know they know this is going on, that this can happen. It's easy for these things to take place and kids to get in a place where they need some help and in over their head, and they want to know about it. They want to know about it because they're there to help, and they can walk them through and work with them together to get the support necessary to get themselves out of these situations.
Noni Klassen is the Director of Education at the Canadian Centre of Child Protection. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
A surge in flight delays and cancellations is leading to mounting complaints tonight. And while travelers say they're being unfairly denied compensation, airlines say they don't have to pay up because the disruptions are caused by crew shortages, which create safety concerns. As Sophia Harris reports, passengers aren't buying it.
It was horrible.
Lee and Frank Michael had a rough trip home from Victoria. Their flight was canceled, and Air Canada couldn't find them a hotel room, so they slept overnight at the Vancouver airport.
I've got arthritis. I'm aching and sore. I'm sleeping on a freaking concrete floor. I know it's carpeted, but you can feel the cold coming straight up through that concrete.
The couple's initial flight to Victoria was also delayed, so they filed a claim with Air Canada for $2,800 in compensation. Air Canada rejected the claim, stating the flight disruptions were due to crew constraints linked to COVID-19 and were safety-related. Under federal rules, passengers are only compensated if the flight disruption is within the airline's control. Airlines also don't have to pay if the disruption was because of a safety issue. The Michaels argue staffing is within an airline's control.
It's not a safety issue. It's a management issue. You have to manage your resources.
In principle, the Canadian Transportation Agency agrees and forced WestJet to pay up last month after it denied a passenger compensation due to a crew shortage.
Airlines largely control things like staffing, things like the scheduling of their crews. Airlines are expected to have solid contingency plans for crew to make sure that they have the crew necessary.
This air passenger rights expert says the CTA needs to be doling out harsh punishments to make sure airlines compensate when they're supposed to.
That's the major concern, is that the regulator is not exactly striking fear into the hearts of the carriers to make them follow the rules.
Air Canada says it abides by federal air passenger regulations and shouldn't be penalized for canceling flights for safety reasons.
The hurtful thing is no apology.
The Michaels now plan to file a complaint with the CTA, which is already dealing with a big backlog. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
Travel troubles are also facing many Iranian-Canadian families. The ongoing problem's so serious, they're threatening careers and livelihoods. Pratush Dayal takes a closer look.
It's like we're not Canadians. It's like our life, our suffering is not important for anyone.
Amr Abul Hassani sold his house in Saskatoon after his US-based employer asked him to relocate to North Carolina. When he went to move in January, his family was stopped at the Calgary airport for extra screening. Now, he's worried about losing his job. The extra screening was due to Abul Hassani's conscription with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, more than a decade ago. IRGC was tagged as a terrorist organization in 2019 by the Trump administration.
If they assign you to an organization, you cannot refuse. 1 in every 3 Iranians will be assigned to IRGC because this is one of the biggest branches of the military. This is 128 families.
Abul Hassani says many families across Canada are facing the same problem. He says many have reached out to members of parliament and the Prime Minister's office, but to no avail. Many Iranian Canadians and those traveling with them continue to be stopped and detained while crossing into other countries. They often receive a boarding pass marked with 4S, which stands for Secondary Security Screening Selection. More than a dozen Iranian Canadians I spoke with say this enhanced screening means long, invasive interviews. There is also an extensive search of their belongings, cell phones, and social media. Many are separated from their family and others have lost foreign work opportunities. Both Canada Border Services Agency and Global Affairs Canada say that they are aware of the problem, but they say they can't intervene with American jurisdiction. Those affected say it is very much a Canadian problem, but there is lack of political will.
I know that they have contacted Canadian government and have asked them to cooperate with them to find a solution. And our government, unfortunately, has denied that. They have said that at this point, they don't have any interest in solving this problem. This is very sad. Why should I be facing this? Am I not Canadian enough?
Abul Hassani wants Canada to clear his and other conscripts' names. He says the Prime Minister should act when he says a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. Pratish Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The FBI home search of former U.S. President Donald Trump. The classified documents authorities may be looking for is next.
A group calling itself the Ad Hoc Group for the Advancement of a Peaceful Economy claims that Canada is busy embracing the American military-industrial complex.
And it's happening here. And that is the only way in which we can view the context of air shows. You know, there is a legitimate use of that space, but the legitimate use of space is because our spaceship Earth is sick. It's in danger.
Out in the Fraser Valley today, things were peaceful enough as Premier Van der Zalm opened the trade exhibition component of the annual air show. Most of the planes have yet to arrive. The strongest military presence so far is that of the Soviet Union. Its Mammoth transport plane, for instance, and a pair of MiG-29 jet fighters are drawing a lot of attention. The Soviets say they are interested in peddling some of their military hardware, and it's just possible that they will make some contacts through the air show. But does that make the air show an arms bazaar?
There really is very little military presence here at all. And our Airshow Society, that is the Abbotsford Airshow Society and Airshow Canada, has gone out of its way to make sure that our emphasis is on commercial products, civil products, and as you see when you go through this trade show, 99% of the products that are shown here related to civil application, not to military application.
At the Airshow Canada Trade Fair, the most warlike exhibits seem to be from Great Britain. But most of the other entries of high-tech hardware have basically peaceful applications. So why are warplanes so much an important part of the air show?
It would be a strange kind of an air show without having that high-tech equipment that's here. And the reason that we like to see it is because it's such superb flying equipment, and it's exciting to see.
Terry Dolan, CBC News, at the Abbotsford Air Show.
Turning to the U.S. now, where fallout from the FBI's raid on Donald Trump's Florida estate is throwing more fuel onto an already very hot political situation. So far, the U.S. Justice Department is saying very little about all of this. But as Katie Simpson shows us, Trump's allies are more than happy to fill the silence.
To Donald Trump's diehard supporters, this is a dark moment in history.
We have a witch hunt. You feel like you might be in Venezuela or China or Russia or even in Hitler's Germany.
A small group gathered near Trump's Florida residence, vowing vengeance.
It's time for we the people to get off the couch, shut down Netflix, put your phone down, get up, come outside, or you're not going to have a country left.
The Department of Justice is not commenting on the raid, in which FBI agents reportedly removed a dozen boxes of documents from Mar-a-Lago. Trump's allies took advantage of the void of official information, casting their own narrative.
This is the government using an agency to spy on a potential opponent's campaign. And this is truly frightening, and it is not what our democracy stands for.
Trump has a controversial history with sensitive information. Not only did he take 15 boxes of classified documents when he left office, he's also reportedly ripped up and flushed papers down the toilet. If there were sensitive materials at Trump's private club, it could pose a national security risk.
You can imagine the kinds of secrets that make their way to the White House and specifically to the desk of the president. Mar-a-Lago has a lot of traffic, including traffic from foreigners and including possible trespassers from foreign intelligence services.
Whatever the FBI was looking for, some Republicans say it had better be big.
It has to be something of incredible magnitude for at least my side of the aisle to say that was warranted. Without that, I think we're going to find ourselves in a very big mess as it relates to
and releasing a new ad, furthering speculation he's going to declare himself a presidential candidate. It would give him some cover to dismiss investigations as politically motivated and could blunt any new probes, as the Attorney General has to personally sign off on any investigation involving a candidate.
I believed he was going to run before. I'm stronger in my belief now.
On to the latest developments from the Hockey Canada scandal. The organization has now appointed a Toronto-based lawyer to serve as interim chair of its board of directors. As Ashley Burke tells us, this comes as Hockey Canada faces mounting public pressure over its handling of sexual assault allegations.
Amid growing calls for Hockey Canada's leadership to resign and a major shakeup of the board of directors, the hockey organization has made one new appointment. Andrea Skinner is now the chair. She's a Toronto-based lawyer who has been on the board since 2020. Hockey Canada said she also played varsity hockey at Cornell University and later coached at the University of Ottawa. In a statement, Skinner said she believes Hockey Canada is taking positive steps to effect meaningful change. Now, this announcement is just the latest move by Hockey Canada to try and restore its credibility and public trust. And it comes just days after Hockey Canada's 13 regional hockey federations threatened to stop paying fees to Hockey Canada, saying that it was appalled over its handling of sexual assault allegations, and a fund in part made up of their registration fees being used to pay for some of the settlements. And that included a high-profile case of an alleged 2018 group sexual assault that allegedly involved 8 players, including some members of the World Junior team. Now, a parliamentary committee into Hockey Canada's handling of that case is set to resume at the latest by the fall. In the meantime, MPs from multiple parties continue to call on Hockey Canada's leadership to resign. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, they're counting the votes in Kenya's presidential election. Fewer people showed up at the polls than usual today. One of the top candidates is a longtime opposition leader, Raila Odinga. This is his 5th shot at the presidency. The outgoing president is backing him. That's a bit of a surprise because the other top candidate is the deputy president, William Ruto. If it's close, there will be a runoff election within 30 days. Results of this vote are expected by the end of the week. Well, the Russian war on Ukraine is pushing the Central African Republic, a landlocked country, toward famine and crushing economic hardship. Tonight, the UN's World Food Program has issued a dire forecast for a country already ravaged by its own internal fighting.
There are now 2.2 million people who are acutely food insecure in the Central African Republic. When you look at the population size, that's nearly half the population. We expect a 30% increase in rice, a 67% increase for the price of wheat flour, and a staggering 70% increase in the price of vegetable oil. At the back of our minds as well is the impact that fuel, which is out of reach, high transport costs, is having on our own operations.
So we are in the perfect storm, as we call it. So definitely the numbers are not good. COVID-19 did not help. The picture is not rosy. It's really the impact of food security. How could we as FAO help countries to get out of the crisis? How could we do some of them at the global level, but also help regions and countries to maintain and implement those policies?
Without immediate funding, food and nutrition insecurity will only increase for millions of people.
Chaos, confusion, delays, disappointment. The challenge is keeping the music on mute in some parts of the country for what should be a fun festival season. That's next. Also at 6:41, a live look tonight at the Lions. The rain is coming, a welcome break from the heat for some. Johanna joins us after the break with that full forecast.
Today, politicians celebrated railway upgrades on the route north to Churchill. Some of those officials were at the same spot 4 years ago when Ottawa promised cash. The big difference? Now the provincial government is helping financially.
To have the province aboard means that this is the kind of collaboration that is going to endure.
Province and Ottawa are teaming up to repair and improve the only land link to Churchill. $74 million from Manitoba and an extra $60 million from Ottawa.
The question of this new era of global trade is how Canada will help the world find alternatives of being dependent on Russian exports. The strategic northern transportation corridor, including the Port of Churchill, will be one of those.
In the past, the rail line's future was particularly shaky. In 2017, flooding washed part of the crossing away. It sat unrepaired as a Denver-based company argued the cost of repairing the line wasn't worth it. So the feds bought it and turned it over to a partnership of First Nations and other communities along the railway. Churchill's mayor is part of that group.
We know that this investment is precisely what's required to unlock the true economic potential and attract further private sector investments and to advance our goal of a fully developed Arctic trade corridor.
A supply chain expert says the railway could be utilized better.
Well, I think we're keeping it open, put it that way. I don't think we're really taking the full potential. There needs to be a lot more investment in port facilities and also perhaps upgrades, continuous upgrades. I mean, the The port needs more traffic.
Barry Prentice says that could include transporting other products like oil or hydrogen.
This could be a future for the port because I'm not sure we have too many other options.
While officials wouldn't rule out shipping new products, they say they're glad all governments are on the right track. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
I want to take you back now to one of our top stories. The city of Vancouver has started the process of dismantling the growing tent encampment along East Hastings. Fire and safety risk is the stated reason. The city says it has arranged temporary storage for people's personal belongings. Now, earlier in the show, we heard from our Lindsay Duncombe, and here is a longer conversation she had with a resident today who says she's not sure what she'll do next.
This is your home?
Yes.
And how does it feel to have to leave?
It hurts. Like, I can't work. I can't deal with everyday life if I have to pack up and go every day. Holding a regular job isn't going to be, easy.
Where do you work?
I just work for some people in the community.
Yeah.
Just cash jobs,
Yeah.
helping out some of the people.
And what have you been told from the city?
Just that we had to go. But I told them that I've been busy with work and I wasn't really full aware of everything also. So they're okay with that. They're fine that I'm not ready to go yet.
So they're going to let you stay for a bit?
They just said they didn't know it's going to take a while.
Okay. How are you feeling today?
Overwhelmed. I'm already sore from work. My back is killing me. I don't even know where to start.
What do you need to do here?
Just pack and move, basically. But we've got so many totes that were given to us, and it's kind of in the way now too from organizing our stuff.
City.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've given you the tote
Yeah,
bags.
all these totes and stuff. I don't know.
And do you know where, once it's in the tote, do you know where it's going to go?
I think we just take it with us. I don't know.
How are you going to move the tote?
Just our carts, I guess. I don't know. I haven't thought of anything yet. It's like I said, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I just got to pack.
Well, there's some welcome news for the people facing the threat of wildfires in central Newfoundland. The weather has turned in their favor, and the main highway in the region has reopened.
The Bay to Spear Highway servicing Coast Bays and the Canagra Peninsula is now passable. That may not be passable for long, and we're monitoring it regularly, but right now, given the smoke conditions, it is favorable to pass. RCMP are helping people along the way, and we ask people to take their time when traveling through the smoke.
The highway had been shut down since last Thursday. Efforts are now underway to get badly needed supplies into towns that had been cut off. Weather-wise, both the winds and the rain are helping firefighters. The area has received more than 10 millimeters of rain within the last 24 hours, and winds have been linked to blowing smoke away from populated areas. The two wildfires now cover a combined area of more than 200 square kilometers. And for us here in BC, Johanna, with this rain, also rumors of another heat wave, I'm sure not the greatest for our fire situation.
Yeah, you said it, Anita. It would be great if we could have that kind of system.
that Newfoundland's getting right now. Sort of widespread cooler temperatures, widespread rain, but unfortunately, just a few sprinkles and the risk for lightning. Let me take you to the big picture. The current temperatures across the country, you can see that cooler air that's moved in to Atlantic Canada, but we are watching a heat wave in our long range forecast, really starting this time next week. A few big things to get through before then. A quick snapshot of our current fire danger rating. You can see those oranges and reds where most of our wildfires of note are happening, and that's also where the lightning strikes are expected tomorrow. So taking you through the day on Wednesday, here's through the evening into Thursday morning, you can see those low pressure systems sliding it from the south. They will bring a bit of rain, and there is hope that we'll see more rain than new fire starts, but definitely new fire starts and gusty winds are a concern. And that's one of the reasons, as we said earlier, fire crews have been working so hard, especially on the Karamias Creek fire, to sort of control it as best they can before we see erratic weather conditions tomorrow. Okay, after we get through tomorrow, the heat builds back in just above seasonal for Thursday, Friday. Chance of a slight shower Saturday into Sunday for the south coast. Comfortable temperatures, but above seasonal temperatures. And we are watching for that drizzle to linger through Thursday morning, again, before things clear out Friday and Saturday. Possibly a stray shower Saturday and Sunday, and then the heat starts to build in again. I think we'll really feel it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week. And this one looks to be hotter than the one we are sort of in right now. We've just got those heat warnings for the Fraser Canyon, not for the South Coast. But in about a week's time, Anita, I expect to see heat warnings reissued for much of southern BC. So I'll keep you posted. But for now, let's enjoy the rain.
I think we will. Thanks, Jo.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Well, it's the height of summer festival season, but some are having a hard time getting going. Many have been canceled. Others are experiencing a certain chaos. That was the case this past weekend at several events in Ontario and Quebec. The CBC's Lisa Shing has the details and the disappointments.
Instead of chanting a musician's name, calls for a refund came from the crowd at a Toronto area festival this weekend.
I came from Nunavut. Yeah. We had it planned.
Among thousands at Cultureland Music Festival, Mutacharamba. After delays on day one, the second day was abruptly moved more than 40 kilometers away.
It just kept getting worse and worse.
And while attendees waited in the heat, many of the acts never showed up.
People were exhausted, dehydrated, standing, waiting for something that's not coming. That was super disappointing.
Organizers apologized and say they're working on partial refunds. At nearby Kingston Music Festival, there were complaints of overcrowding and lack of access to water on a sweltering day.
It's unacceptable. Like, you can't be doing that. Like, you should have had planned for like all of these factors to be a thing.
We made sure that
organizers say they planned for months and locked the bar to prevent looting.
Our patrons got too excited to finally see the festival happening. And with that excitement, it caused a breach.
It's been a tough season. Montreal's Pride Parade was cancelled because organizers never hired security. In BC, flight delays left many of the Basque Coast music festivals lineup stranded.
Markets are rusty in general. The world has been so standstill that businesses are out of practice. We're out of practice.
After 2 years of pandemic restrictions, festival organizers are facing a lot of challenges, including rising costs, supply issues with stage equipment, and a shortage of experienced workers.
We're seeing festivals that have been established and are, top end concerts and festivals still struggling this summer.
Demand has been high as restrictions eased, but what remains to be seen is if frustrated festival goers are willing to give events like these a second chance next summer. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Will she or won't she? Tennis legend Serena Williams speculates about her future and why her retirement might not be far off. That's next.
Wet'suwet'en and hereditary chiefs emerged from their hour-long meeting in Kahnawake with representatives of the Longhouse political system and members of the community with a message they're sending coast to coast.
If we use our voices properly, we can all make a difference.
The Chiefs want people to know their fight in BC isn't over. They are still opposed to a pipeline project slated to go through their ancestral territory.
Pandemic we went through has actually taken a huge toll, not only in human life, but in spirit and voice. And it's time to get that voice back, remind industry and government that they are not speaking for everybody. Everybody has to stand up and speak. You know, they get exemptions to carry on destruction. Where's our exemption for clean water?
The dispute prompted rail blockades across the country in 2020, held in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en, including in Kahnawake.
They have land that's practically pristine, that's being raped by this pipeline. So it's not like we've had here. It's been kind of like nibbled away at us here.
Diome says the fight by the hereditary chiefs resonates with his own community's history, and this tour by hereditary chiefs and other initiatives to build solidarity are key.
We're in a much more stronger position here in the community and across Canada. We're quite aggressive in our diplomacy, trying to gather other nations, and not just Indigenous nations, but other nations to support us as well.
It's a message the hereditary chiefs will take to the Mohawk territory of Kahnawake tomorrow before they head home. Shu Lee, CBC News, Kahnawake.
A surprise announcement for the world's tennis fans. One of the greatest players of all time, Serena Williams, says she's getting ready to leave the game. Jamie Strachan shows us the impact of her legendary career.
Serena Williams through to the second round.
Few athletes have dominated their sport like Serena Williams. Her latest victory in the first round of the National Bank Open in Toronto, after which the 40-year-old dropped a hint of what was to come.
I'm getting closer to the light, so that's yeah, so that's like lately that's been it for me. I can't wait to get to that light.
I know you're joking, but can you?
I'm not joking.
In an essay published the next morning in Vogue, Williams wrote this month's US Open will likely be her final tournament. I never wanted to have to choose between tennis and family. I don't think it's fair, she wrote. If I were a guy, I wouldn't be writing this because I'd be out there playing and winning while my wife was doing the physical labor of expanding our family.
I can't do this forever, so it's just like sometimes you just want to try your best to enjoy the moments and do the best that you can.
There have been many moments, 73 singles titles, including 23 Grand Slams and 4 gold medals.
The way that she's been able to win as she has in her career, she is right up there. She is the GOAT, she's the best of this era, and she's certainly one of the greatest of all time.
Williams' impact on the game is hard to measure. She learned the game from her father on the public courts of Compton, California, alongside her sister Venus. And her combination of power, grace, and style made her a role model for athletes everywhere.
I grew up watching her. I
that's the reason why I play tennis. And, you know, tennis being a predominantly white sport, it definitely helped a lot because I saw somebody look like me dominating the game, and it made me believe that I could dominate too.
Williams has been just as successful off the court, from tennis icon to cultural icon, with countless endorsements.
Show them what crazy can do.
I'm Venus. I'm Serena.
A Hollywood movie about her life, even appearing in a music video for Beyonce.
The way that she has become a first-name basis. Everyone knows who Serena is.
Williams will play her second-round match Wednesday, a chance for tennis fans in this country to see one of the game's greats in person, possibly for the last time. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, just her ability to stay on top for as long as she has is absolutely incredible. A legend, no doubt, and as we saw there, an inspiration to many. Thanks for watching CBC Vancouver News at 6. We will see you here tomorrow. Good night.